3 will be 4. Everybody got that? It's 5:30.
Okay, good evening. It's 5:30. I'd like to call to order the West Fargo Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Item B is the approval of the order of the agenda.
I would move we change the order of the agenda, move number 6 up to 3.
It's requested to change the agenda on the regular agenda items, public hearing A24-13, move it up to right after A24-10.
I'd second that motion.
Moved and seconded to change the agenda slightly, as just discussed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, slight change to the agenda, ladies and gentlemen. Item number C is the approval of the minutes from April 8th, 2024.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from April 8th as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. Okay, now we move into the regular agenda. First item is public hearing A24-9, Charles Wood River Estates, 12th edition, a request for replat at 405 and 421 20th Avenue East. Lots 1, 2, Block 1 of Charles Wood River Estates, 11th edition. Sankey.
Thank you. This application was received in order to replat 2 residential lots by adjusting the lot line. The proposed subdivision is located on a peninsula along the Cheyenne River and is accessed off the west end of 20th Avenue East via a private drive. The applicant is selling his home and proposes to reduce the lot width of his current home and plat that property with the adjacent lot to the east. The property is zoned to planned unit development to allow for greater flexibility in design and develop primarily for larger lot, single-family dwellings. The city requires a building control line be established on the plat when subdivisions are along the Cheyenne River. The city commission granted a variance in 2014 for that building control line to be 25 feet from the established riverbank. It is recommended that the city approve the proposed application on the basis it is consistent with plans and ordinances, with recommended conditions of approval as follows. Development of proposed Lot 1 will follow the original development plans and standards for the single-family lots as approved with the original Charles Wood River Estates 9th edition, as well as the required excavation observation report for each home as noted in the resolution outlining the development standards. This is a public hearing. I'm available to answer any questions, as is the applicant.
Thank you. Seeing as a public hearing, I'll open it for discussion from the public on this topic at this time. Any comments, questions, input from the public on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll close that section. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I guess I just had one question on this. Maybe a question for, I'm not sure if planning or engineering, but the procedure looks like we issue a building permit and then the homeowner needs to have an excavation observation report prepared. What happens if they find something that appears to be unsuitable? Do we retract the building permit? Do they just have to modify their construction practices? And I'm assuming we haven't necessarily run across that because there's only looks like one house there, but curious.
Thank you, Commissioners. If there is unsuitable material found or a foundation, that type of a thing, then typically we would request that they would go back to that firm, whether it's Braun Intertech or a geotechnical firm, to propose solutions to firm up the soils or provide a more stable foundation that is acceptable.
So that condition, sorry if I interject, so that condition is really just to, is it a sufficient foundation required, or a more deeper foundation required for having, because it's on the bank, is that what it's for?
Basically, what it is we're protecting the river from erosion, for one thing. So anything that's going to be disturbing soils within the area of that bank of the river, we want to protect that, so that way something doesn't happen that exposes soils, or say there is unsuitable soils that's found to be oversaturated and easily sloughable soils, for example. Then we wouldn't want to have the digging take place without some form of remediation that's going to help protect those slopes. So this is all about protecting as much as we can the banks of the river.
And this holds true actually for all these lots that are already,
There is a setback requirement for any lot that is adjacent to a river in West Fargo.
okay.
And then if there is something that's found, the responsibility to correct that is on the property owner.
That's correct. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions for me?
I'll move to recommend approval with the one recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application as submitted with the one condition, as noted by staff. Any further discussion prior to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Item number 2 on the regular agenda is public hearing, A24-10, The Wilds 24th Edition, a request to replat at 5817 James Drive and 950 to 974 61st Street, Avenue East, pardon me. Lots 1 through 8, Block 1, The Wilds 23rd Edition. Sankey.
Thank you. This application was received in order to replat 8 lots into one for development of townhouse-style apartments. Last year, the previous owner applied and received approval for a replat for townhouse-style apartments on the larger lot and 3 and 4 unit townhouse structures on the 7 smaller lots along 61st Avenue. The new owners are replatting to revert to the original subdivision. It is recommended that the city approve the proposed replat on the basis it is consistent with city plans and ordinances, subject to the following. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, sewer and water services to the previously platted lots along 61st Avenue West will need to be abandoned or capped as per Public Works specifications. And number 2, access control along 9th Street West to be included on the final plat. This is a public hearing, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Since it is a public hearing, again, I will open it up for input, questions, or comments from the public on this topic. Any questions or input from the public? Seeing none, close that section. Commissioners? So we're just kind of going back to what was originally planned.
One question, if I may. There's a recommendation that the existing water and sewer services will need to be abandoned or capped as per Public Works specs. Is that the responsibility of the landowner to take care of that, or is that the city landowner responsibility? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve with the 2 recommendations noted.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application as submitted with the 2 recommendations from staff. Any further discussion prior to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passed. The new item 3, public hearing A24-13, R&R First Edition, a request for subdivision located on the northwest quarter of Section 4, Township 139 North, Range 49 West, Sankey.
Thank you. This application was received in order to subdivide undeveloped parcels into 3 lots and dedicate right-of-way for industrial development. This property is located south of the Hazers in our industrial area. Part of the property on the east side is developed with shop and warehouse space. The property owner intends to sell proposed lots 1 and 2 and maintain the existing shop space on proposed lot 3. Additional right-of-way dedication is being platted for the 9th Street Northeast and 7th Avenue East reconstruction project, which includes a roundabout at the intersection of those streets. 75 feet of right-of-way is shown on the proposed roundabout at the intersection of 7th and 9th Street, and an additional 40 feet is shown along 9th Street Northeast for a total of 100 feet. The city subdivision ordinance requires a 5% public dedication for industrial developments. The Park District has indicated no need for land within the subject property and requests payment in lieu of land dedication. Being additional property would be needed for right-of-way, this may be handled through the public dedication process. Land dedication for the additional right-of-way for roundabout and frontage road is shown on the plat, and the square footage is being deducted from the 5% public dedication. The remaining amount would be cash in lieu. A public dedication agreement will be needed to outline the terms of the dedication prior to City Commission approval. It is recommended that the city approve the proposed application on the basis that it is consistent with city plans and ordinances, with recommended condition of approval as followed. The applicant continues to work with staff as to the details of the public land dedication and acquisition of land for right-of-way, and that a signed public dedication agreement is submitted outlining such details prior to City Commission consideration. This is a public hearing. I'm available to answer any questions, as is the applicant.
Thank you. Public hearing, I'll open it up for public comment and input at this time. Is there any input on public on this topic? Seeing none, close that section. Commissioners.
Nothing from me on this one.
Really?
I'm sorry.
I'll move to recommend approval with the one condition.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application as submitted with the one recommendation. Any further discussion prior to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Next item is public hearing, A24-11. North Pond at the Preserve 14th Edition, previously advertised as North Pond and Preserve 18th Edition. Request for conditional use permit for proposed auto sales at 450 23rd Avenue East, Lot 1, Block 1 of North Pond at the Preserve 14th Edition. McGillivray Rivas. Did I pronounce that correctly? McGillivray. Pardon me for butchering that.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So North Pond at the Preserve 14th Edition, this is a request for conditional use permit to allow the use of auto sales within the C Light Commercial Zoning District. The subject property is located at 450 23rd Avenue East, which is just west of the Duluth Trading Company on the south side of the interstate. I've got the aerial image pulled up on the screen here just to kind of indicate the location. The applicant is Brad Sather with INS Development, represented here tonight by Sydney Sather Restveg. Should you have any questions for the applicant? The purpose of the application is to entitle the subject property for the development of 2 car dealerships on the subject property. The proposed dealerships will be located on the northern half of the subject property, as indicated on the site plan included in your meeting packet here, which I'll try and pull up. There we go. So north is to the left in this image here.
Okay.
The, as indicated on the site plan, they've got 2 different dealerships that they're proposing for this site. Again, located on the north side of the property, tucked up closer to the interstate. They do indicate a looped road that you can see here that loops from, that's 6th,
9th Street.
or excuse me,
6th?
6th Street, also
My
Rusted
eyes are
Lane, and then loops back down to 32nd, or excuse me, 23rd Avenue East. The loop road there does not exist today. The applicant had originally submitted an application for subdivision in conjunction with the conditional use permit, but has opted to hold off on proceeding with the subdivision until the conditional use permit, or I should say pending conditional use permit approval. And so staff does recommend that any approval of the conditional use permit be conditioned on a replat of the subject property that does include the dedication of right-of-way for the completion of that loop road there. The subject property was platted as a single lot and rezoned from agricultural to C light commercial back in 2021. The subject property is also located within the CO-I, which is our interstate corridor overlay zoning district, which establishes additional requirements for development adjacent to the interstate, mostly relating to such things as landscaping, buffering, and some added building design standards in terms of the aesthetic appearance of the corridor as people travel through town. Public notices were sent out to owners of property within 350 feet of the subject property. Several calls and emails have been received to date. Emails received prior to the publication of the packet are included in your staff report as attachments. And then additional comments received over the last couple of days have also been provided to you as handouts prior to the start of the meeting tonight. And just in summary, you probably haven't had a chance to read every single comment that was laid down in front of you here tonight, but staff would summarize those comments as expressing concerns regarding potential traffic increases as a result of the proposed use, also relating to potential test driving of vehicles especially through the neighborhood and in proximity to Freedom Elementary School, which is just a couple blocks to the south there. And an additional comment that was pretty common was also concern over potential outdoor lighting. That's typical of an auto dealership, the potential for that light to shine into the neighborhood at night. The criteria for the granting of a conditional use permit are outlined within the staff report. With regard to ingress and egress, the subject property does abut public right-of-way on the south and the east. 23rd Avenue is classified as a collector roadway intended for a higher volume of traffic than a typical local street. Additionally, public improvements are underway and planned for this corridor further to the east, closer to Costco there, to accommodate anticipated additional traffic in this area. With regard to potential impacts on adjoining properties, all abutting properties are located within the C light commercial zoning district, as kind of illustrated on the zoning map here. You can see to the south across 23rd Avenue, and specifically to the south and west, are those residential, is the residential neighborhood in the yellow there. However, outdoor lighting is one item that is a potential concern, especially in relation to some of the residential areas further to the southwest that I just pointed out. Staff has requested additional information regarding proposed lighting associated with the proposed use and potential impacts on residential properties to this area. And the applicant did provide somewhat of a project narrative that should have been handed out to you here tonight. They also do have a PowerPoint presentation that they'd like to present to you all as part of this item. But staff does recommend that any approval of the conditional use permit be conditioned on the submittal of a photometric study or other similar means of verification that the proposed lighting will not be impacted.
I'm sorry, what study?
Photometric study. A
That's
lighting
lighting
study. A lighting study, basically demonstrating that there will not be substantial lighting impacts to the neighborhood. And then also in regards to the conditions or criteria for conditional use permit regarding soil conditions, it has been noted that documented wetlands do exist on the subject property. These wetlands are required to be remediated in accordance with federal standards prior to development taking place, and so when I talked about the recommendations, there'll be a recommendation in regards to that as well. Overall, staff finds the proposal to be consistent with the West Fargo 2.0 comprehensive plan, more specifically as it relates to increasing jobs and commercial business within the city to support the local economy and tax base. Staff's recommendation is to recommend conditional approval to the City Commission of the proposed conditional use permit with the conditions outlined in the staff report. And I pulled the staff report up here. The last page of the staff report includes those proposed conditions. Those proposed conditions of approval include the replatting of the subject property prior to the issuance of any building permits for the proposed use. The design of that replat shall include the dedication to public right-of-way for the completion of that loop road, and then the wetland determination and then any mitigation efforts related to the existing wetlands on the site there. Condition number 2, the land use of auto sales shall be restricted to the northern portion of Lot 1, Block 1, North Pond at the Preserve 14th Edition, as indicated on the accompanying site plan. So that use would be restricted to the northern half of the lot adjacent to the interstate. It would not be allowed on the south half of the lot. Number 3, prior to final consideration by the City Commission, the applicant shall provide the following documents to ensure compliance with the criteria for the granting of a conditional use permit. The first point there is just, again, that documentation that lighting will not be a nuisance to the adjoining properties through the submittal of a photometric study or other means. And then the second point there, just a revised site plan which details some of the more potentially impactful items like refuse containers and some of the buffering and location of signage, things like that. And then item 4 there, a signed conditional use permit agreement is provided prior to consideration by the City Commission, which is standard for any conditional use permit and would document the conditions. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you have for staff. This is a public hearing item, and again, the applicant would like to provide some additional detail regarding their request tonight.
Okay, and that mean the presentation that he wants to show?
Yep, I can pull that up now if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you. This is a public hearing. We'll start then, I believe, with the applicant's input. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure there's a number of people here on this topic. And as we go through this in the public comment section, just request you come up to the mic, identify yourself so that we can record that input and then address the commission on your comments and thoughts. We'll start with you, ma'am. You are?
Right. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sydney Rusting. I am a resident in Rivers Bend and have been for over 5 years now, and also an employee at Gateway. I wanted to start off by thanking the commissioners and the planning staff for being here tonight and for your service to our community and for everyone being here this evening. As a resident of West Fargo, I have been very happy with the growth and development that has occurred. We are excited for the continued growth of West Fargo and also the expansion of Gateway. Gateway has been family-owned and operated for over 40 years and is looking to expand. And we've had such a fun time being in Fargo, and we want to join West Fargo's businesses and be a part of this community. We are seeking a conditional use permit to build a Hyundai Nissan car dealership. And how do I go to the next slide here? Oh, sorry, there we go. Okay. This is a preliminary drawing of the site plan, as you see here. The dealership will sit on the northernmost portion of the site along I-94. Again, I apologize if some of this is a little bit repetitive. The position of the dealership also allows for further development on the southern portion, which will provide future economic impact, buffering, and amenities for the commercial and residential neighborhoods, which is what you see right here. At the dealership, we would have an estimated 20 parking spots for customers. We have about 75 customers visit our store per day, and that varies from the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And on Fridays and Saturdays, that would be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and we are closed on Sundays. Our traffic counts are much lower than many other limited commercial uses on a per acre basis. Again, our sales hours of operation are 8 to 8 Monday through Thursday, 8 to 6 on Friday and Saturday, and closed on Sundays. We would have approximately 40 to 60 employees at this location. The dealership would be a professional space that is regulated by brand specifications and standards. Here are some examples of typical materials that are used. This shows kind of daytime and nighttime views. Some more views. All right. And next are going to be a few slides to show the current office to residential area distances. So this is just an overview. All right. So this first one is the lot line of Enclave, which is approximately 49 feet from the residential lot line. Oops. This next one is the lot line of Vance Thompson Vision Center for, Vance Thompson Vision and Center for Surgery, which is approximately 471 feet from the residential lot line. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see here. It's this blue line. And this next one would be the potential dealership site, which is approximately 807 feet from the nearest residential lot line. The new employment base, new auto purchase and service opportunities, real estate and sales tax revenues, and future commercial amenities to the south make this a very special opportunity for the city of West Fargo and for Gateway. We are looking forward to delivering high-quality properties, community opportunities, and great service to the city of West Fargo and our neighbors. Now I'm going to go over some of the concerns that we have received. Take a sip of water quick. So the first common concern that was received was regarding traffic. So 6th Street East, or Rustad Lane East, was designed with the commercial zoning of this land in mind, and additional commercial traffic will come to this part of West Fargo regardless of the specific use for the land. Additional traffic will not impact areas west of 4th Street East, as there are no through streets that would logically lead new traffic to take a route west on 23rd Avenue. The city is already working on the traffic concerns by putting in traffic lights on 23rd Avenue. Due to this property being a commercial property, we can expect to see an increase in traffic. With our business in this location, I believe it will be significantly less than if a large retail store or if multiple businesses were to go there. For example, if a Target goes there, which to my knowledge, according to the developer, has already been approved for this location and could secure at any time, they have roughly figured 200 plus customer parking spaces and 500 to 1,000 customers per day, not to mention their drive-up areas causing extra traffic. Again, there was a concern about test drives increasing traffic. Our employees have predetermined routes that they take when test driving vehicles. Neighborhoods is not one of those routes. Test drives take place on the interstate, so customers can really get the feel for the product they're looking to purchase. It is at those speeds where they can try out the new technology like adaptive cruise, lane departure, and other items. And I just spoke with our general sales manager for Hyundai Nissan, and estimated test drives for Hyundai Nissan is typically about 10 per day. The other main concern was noise. So this development, as well as additional future developments to the south of this proposed development, will only act as a buffer to the interstate noise coming off of I-94. There was also a concern mentioned about intercom systems. We will not, have not used an intercom system for over 10 years. And then lastly, lighting was a concern. While the lights at a car dealership are left on throughout most of the night, this development will be a minimum of 800 feet away from the nearest residential lot. The lighting is designed to showcase the vehicles on the lot, which would be directionally down, with the parking lot to ensure the lot is visible and safe. In closing, the zoning established for this area is light commercial, which was established years ago as a result of careful planning by the developer of Rivers Bend and the city of West Fargo to provide proper buffering from interstate and amplify the amenities along 26 for the future residential neighborhood and the community. This plan was established prior to any households present south of 26. Light commercial and its allowed uses create a necessary buffer from interstate visuals and noise and allow for positive amenities, positive tax base, and positive economic impact in jobs to support city services. Based on Land Development Code for light commercial, the following uses are allowed. Retail uses, on and off sale liquor sales, food, hardware, large merchandisers like Target, offices, laundromats, bowling alleys, clubs, repair shops, educational centers, medical facilities, hotels, automobile services, service stations, repair shops, social services facilities like a homeless shelter, etc. All of these uses are allowed without hearings. The auto dealership use positioned to the north of the site features lower traffic counts and activity than any retail or restaurant use and will have a lower impact on traffic and other concerns than most of the other uses listed above. The southernmost portion of the site would be left for future development of limited commercial uses to provide additional services, amenities for the area. These future projects will also serve as further buffers between the neighborhood, the land across the street, and the dealership locations. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you.
So all your display vehicles, the new and used vehicles, will be all facing to the north towards the interstate?
So, let me just pull up see if I can, oops. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in here as best as I can. So again, this is preliminary site plan, but it would be, this would basically be, here would our display vehicles would be, and then customer parking would be here, and then we would probably have some display vehicles right here as well, and possibly over in this area too. Mainly just right in the center here, though.
The showroom that you showed a picture of, the front face, is that facing the interstate?
This part right here would be, so back over here would be the interstate.
Right, so,
Oh.
but the showroom, that you showed a picture of with the
Oh,
glass.
sure.
That is facing the interstate, right?
Correct, I apologize. So this is the showroom right here for the Hyundai building, and then the Nissan showroom would mirror that.
Okay. Any other questions right now for the developer?
And
Thank you.
This is more than a city block away from any other, it's more than a city block away from, it's more than a tenth of a mile away from any of the residential areas where this.
Yep,
thing
the
starts.
close, so 807
You're right.
feet, yep. I apologize, I don't know if that's,
Yeah, what's a city block,
I
Dave?
think there's 10 in a mile, something. But
Sorry.
We used to have blocks, we don't have blocks anymore. Like meandering streets, but
Question, those lots on the south part, does your company own them as well, or plan to own them?
I'm here to present just on the commercial use, so I apologize, I'm limited to that information.
No, that's part of one of the conditions, right, Aaron? Where'd he go? There he is. That would be finalized conditionally on this. So the overall developer
Those,
would own
those,
that.
the
right?
open lots between 23rd and the dealership are not owned by the same group?
So right now, it's all under one ownership. It's my understanding that the applicant is looking to get, with the current owner's permission, is looking to get approval of the conditional use permit in order to move forward with a purchase of the northern portion. I can't speak to the southern portion with intent.
My only concern would be is if they own that, and they say their intention is, well, maybe there'll be some other businesses that'll come in and create a buffer. I could also see the dealerships being successful and wanting more space to expand, and then all of a sudden the dealership, instead of being a block north, is down to the avenue. That would be the only
And that's the intent of that.
long-term concern I guess I'd have.
Yep. And that's the intent of the recommended condition, is to condition approval on restricting the car dealership land use to the north half of the lot. So if they ever did want to expand south, they would have to come back and request that.
Okay.
And at this time and for future, the way that this is set up in the preliminary drawing is larger, so the buildings could even be smaller, so we would never want to go into that southern portion of the land. If that, like, we only would use that northern part that you see.
You're saying roughly, 40 employees, where do they park? Do they park on the lot? you pointed out a lot of display areas and customer parking, but I don't know if you touched on employee parking.
So right now, the way that the developer kind of put everything here, so I think, so when I said, so we'd have vehicles on display here, vehicles on display here, and possibly here or here. And then employee parking would probably either be along this line, where you see these trees and things. And then,
The only concern would be is that if you're dependent on the street to park employees or,
oh, we don't.
you know, that would not be desirable.
No, yeah, we don't want to have our employees parking on the street. Definitely not.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, and as such, we open it up to the public for comment and input on this application. Are there any comment or input? Again, as I request, please identify yourself, let us know who you are, and
Yeah, hi, my name's Jessica Satram. Thank you for, making yourselves open to comments. So my family and I, we live on North Pond Drive, which is one of the closest roads to the proposed changes. I guess my hope in coming here is that you hear our concerns as parents. There are a lot of young kids that live on that street. There are a lot of children that live back in that Rivers Bend area in general. And so I know a lot of the letters and the emails that you've received already have been talking about that increased traffic. Now, I know some of the arguments against that were, well, we may have lower traffic counts than, say, a Target or some of the other light commercial proposals, but that doesn't mean all light commercial proposals have that amount of traffic. So for instance, what we see with Enclave, Rivers Bend Medical Center, Vance Thompson, the other businesses that are already back on that strip, the hours of those businesses are during business hours and the traffic is quite light. Now, I think we have, talking in the future of like what could go there and be a suitable business, it's really setting itself up nicely to become a strip of medical businesses, medical outlets, things that are working during those 9 to 5 hours that don't have that evening or weekend traffic, which is really the concern as parents. What's happening during the day, for the most part, children are in school or at daycare, but it is those, like they're open till 8 p.m. at night. That's when we're worried about these drivers coming on our streets, or those Saturday hours when the kids are out playing. Now, there was discussion on that 23rd, is it Avenue, that Costco Road, we call it, that's built out for more commercial traffic, but the surrounding roads aren't. And what we've seen is on the weekends, and I know they're currently expanding some of those things and changing some of those things near Costco, when that gets backed up, people come on our roads. They come on the road, I believe it's 26, that goes in front of Freedom Elementary, where there are roundabouts. There are kids walking to and from school. It's already a little nerve-wracking having our kids cross those roads with the current traffic. The thought of like, oh, we're having more people come up and drive through those roads because maybe there is a little bit of backup, or maybe that turn was just more convenient to them than taking 23rd. That's a little worrisome from our standpoint. I know one of the other rebuttals was, well, we have predetermined test drive routes. So my follow-up question would be, do we always have an employee taking people on a test drive route? Because we purchased a car recently. There was an offer for somebody to come with us, but we test drove many cars from many different dealerships on our own. We chose what roads we were going to take. We chose how fast we were going to go, all of those different things. But I guess my biggest plea is that you just hear our heart of the safety concerns for our children and those neighborhoods. I think there are many different business opportunities that could use that land for good, where we can be boosting the economy, providing jobs, providing a service to the city, but also enhancing the neighborhood and not creating a risk of harm or detriment in any way to the surrounding families.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hi there.
Lars Steerdal, 2433 McLeod Drive East, West Fargo. been a resident of West Fargo for over 40 years. I'm glad Gateway would finally want to come over to our great city, but I have some reservations about it. I've been in the auto repair industry for many years, and I can't believe that a car dealership can be called light commercial. Being in the auto repair business, I know that there's customers that come there, there's parts vehicles, there's semis, there's employee vehicles. You have in a dealership, if you haven't been to one, just go and sit outside one. I don't care if it's Corwin's or who it is. Just sit there for a while and look at all the traffic that comes. 23rd Avenue cannot withstand that traffic volume. I'm going to tell you right now, I go on 23rd Avenue going home and going out. Every time. I can go by Holy Cross Church, which I don't usually do. I come down 23rd Avenue, and that is, it's full already. If something, the ambulance or the fire department needs to get down that road, it's going to be impossible. I'm just, that's the way it is. The other thing that I would worry about in a car dealership or any auto repair or whatever you call it, what's going to be the front side of it looks nice to the interstate, but what's the back side that the people have to look at, or the residents that we have to look at? I'm sure they'll try and keep it nice, but there again, dealerships or auto repairs, you always got the dead one that's back there, or a dead car or whatever. Are they going to put up a barrier fence so you can't see any of that? I don't know what their plans are. I guess I don't see anything. The other thing is, from Veterans to 6th Street, that road, that's going to be backed up when the employees leave the car dealership, and along with Costco, that's going to be backed up all the way back there going to work and coming from work. So that's the reservations that I would have as a residential homeowner, is just number one is safety, just for fire and ambulances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
there.
Cody Newmiller. I live in Rivers Bend. I have an email that you guys should have in your packet, but I had a couple of other things I wanted to touch on as well. The first thing, and I don't know what the standard is, but I just could not believe when I saw this letter on Facebook, and I'm not much of a social media person, that this letter only went out to people within 350 feet, something that would have such a profound impact on the North Pond and Rivers Bend neighborhoods. Again, I don't know what the standard is, but it certainly seems like when you talk to people in the neighborhood, they get pretty fired up about it. I would say I've heard now one Rivers Bend person that's actually in favor of this. So I guess that's kind of my concern. I wonder what the feedback would actually be if the letters would have went out to those neighborhoods. I bet it would be overwhelmingly, they would have reservations for that. That's just one piece of feedback. I don't know if that's necessarily appropriate for this forum, but the other thing I really wanted to touch on, again, like I did in my letter, is the aspect of safety. I've lived in West Fargo for, I think, 13 or 14 years. Previously, we've lived in Charleswood, right on 15th Avenue, and there was so many issues with traffic speeding down that road. There was, hey, we can park on one side of the road when we moved there, and then it was two sides, and then we increase patrols, we do all these things, and at the end of the day, you can't do it. If you can't engineer it out or take the root cause of the problem away, you can't make the traffic slow down. I mean, 60 miles an hour, multiple times a day, every day. We finally moved. We decided, hey, we love West Fargo. Where do we want to go? We went to Rivers Bend, and it's kind of tucked back in there. It's quieter. There's so many kids. It's unbelievable when you drive through there on a weekend or even after school. It is, I've never seen a neighborhood like it. So, we moved there because it's quieter. It's slower traffic. I can't say I've been on a test drive in the last 5 years where I've had somebody accompany me. And I guess that sounds like, oh, hey, that would solve the problem, but is that being written in like, hey, this has to be that way forever? I mean, that's a simple policy change down the road. Naturally, I just think the traffic argument is a big one to consider because Costco, we get a lot of traffic, but the traffic comes right off of Veterans, goes into Costco, and it goes right back out. Most people are coming from somewhere. If you have a dealership and it's congested there and you want to go out to Costco, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to go straight, or I'm going to go to the west. All of which, every single route that you do brings you past a park or else one of two schools. There's Freedom and there's Trinity. I think there's something like 6 to 8 different crosswalks. And I just think this is really dangerous. I think as soon as we have the first fatality of a kid walking to school or home at 2:30 in the afternoon, we're going to wish like, hey, I wish we really would have thought about this. I guess what I'm saying is it feels like the wrong kind of traffic. You're getting in a new car, you're not familiar with things, you're stepping into an unfamiliar thing and you're maybe trying to hot rod it a bit even, and I'm going to get out of here so I can drive. It just doesn't seem like what we want in that area. The other thing is just with my concern as a homeowner is what this does to property values. Anything that I've ever read or seen on this, it just makes property values go down. Nobody wants to live by a car dealership. The noise, the lights, horns going off in the middle of the night, etc. I guess I would just really ask as a resident, please consider rejecting this permit request. I guess I'm really asking, please side with the residents. We don't want this. We don't want this in our area. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or input from the public?
Thank you very much, Commission. My name is Thomas Baldwin. I'm a researcher at NDSU, and I do agriculture, which is why I look like I just got off a tractor, because I did. Thank you for hearing us all out and considering this. North Pond and Riverbend are really special areas that you all had a really great hand in producing. It's an environment that is safe. It's an environment I want to raise my kids in, and I really appreciate that. If it was up here, you could see Rivers Bend as a nice little curve around that. North Pond is a nice little curve around the North Pond. I'm the second house in, and my bedroom window will face right to the new auto dealer if you allow that. My concern is, of course, all the things that they said, the traffic, the congestion, the things that will really affect the area, but also I will be directly impacted by the lights. These are not your normal lights in parking lots just to be on at a low dim to make sure that things are safe. They want to sell cars. To sell cars, you want the bright lights to show off the cars on the highways, right? And there's nothing at all, Fargo is flat as a pancake. There's nothing blocking that. So given that, thank you so much for considering.
Thank you. Yes, hello.
I'm Dave Leadall. I also live in Rivers Bend, just a few houses away from the homes that were notified formally. Thanks for listening to all of us today. I just want to echo that. I just had a few additional concerns in addition to the email that I sent that I think was included in your packet. I think that to say that no more traffic in the neighborhood would be a reality. The claim I don't think is substantiated because even with a test drive with a representative, I don't think they would decline a request to go through a neighborhood to get a feel for the vehicle before going on the interstate. So I think to say that a pre-approved route wouldn't include those situations where a driver wishes to go through a neighborhood first, which I think is more common than one might think and would definitely need validation, probably from an unbiased source. I think the hours of operation, even if they were acceptable, could be changed at any time. So I have concerns that, the hours of operation could be set in a certain way, but then who's to say months or years down the road it's not open 7 days a week, deep into the night. I also heard a claim that the noise buffer would actually be part of the benefit of this business, and I don't know that there's any data to suggest that a car dealership would cause a buffer of noise from the interstate. Once again, I don't think that's related to data, perhaps an assumption, and I would need to be educated on that. I think the concern of more dealerships coming in should be more highlighted than it is. I think we have all seen car dealerships. The norm is that not just one exists, but multiple ones exist, especially on I-29 today. There are many car dealerships. It would only make sense that this is part of a slippery slope. And I do agree with the other friends who've shared that there should be an unbiased third-party study on what this does to home values prior to making a decision. I just want to thank the commissioners for hearing us all today. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further comment, input from the public?
Sorry, just one quick. Leighton Mole, also live on McLeod Drive. I have one question with regard to the conditions of the development. How binding is that? Like, right now, we're just kind of having a promise that we won't have an auto mall in this area with multiple different brands. So like, how binding are rules like that? Is it a thing where when Chevy wants to come over, or even some of the Corwins want to come over, do we repeat this process and reconsider it? Or since one is in, how can we possibly say no then to the others? So I don't know, I'm not familiar with the process that you all follow for things like that. And so I'd be curious to know.
So is
how
the
realistic
question
it is.
regarding the expansion of auto dealers?
To that undeveloped area, since it's going to be owned by the same company, I mean, we all have to, I think we all know that this is the beginning of an auto mall coming in there. And so I think that's one of our biggest worries. Like, we know it's not two beautiful small dealerships along the interstate. Like, I've never seen an isolated dealership. They're always together to attract customers to the same area. And then another question I'd have, and I don't know if y'all can answer this or if this is something more, is with regard to the wetlands, what types of mitigation are there for runoff of fuels, oils, fluids from vehicles, soaps and detergents for washing the cars? Do we know anything about that, or as far as like groundwater pollution or wetland area? I don't know if that's something that's known or not, but those were a couple of my main concerns. I did submit a letter to what you all do have in the packets. But those are my main questions or concerns. And so if anyone has those or any information about that.
Aaron, I'm going to ask you to perhaps help answer that first question, and engineering the second,
Thanks. I'll just sit.
if that's okay.
So in regards to the first question, in terms of what would prevent additional requests to the south, some of that depends upon if and how this conditional use permit gets approved. So the request right now is for the entire subject property for a conditional use permit. One of the proposed conditions that staff has included in the recommendation is to restrict that land use to the north half of this lot. And so if, for example, the conditional use permit were to be approved with the condition that the land use of auto sales is restricted to the north half of the lot, then nobody could come in and build a second dealership or third dealership to the south.
Which is one of the recommendations in the
Yep, that is a recommendation.
proposal. Okay.
However, somebody could, choose to, apply to revisit that conditional use, or the conditions of that conditional use permit, in which case it would be the exact same process. It would be, I would imagine, treated exactly like any new conditional use permit request. And so letters would go out to owners of property within 300 feet of the subject property. We would post public notice in the forum newspaper legal section 2 times in the 2 weeks leading up to the public hearing. It would go to planning and zoning for a recommendation, and then to the city commission for a determination.
Okay.
And a lot more residents would get that notice because it's right across the street.
For purposes of our notification, it did include the entire boundary of the existing lot, so it did include,
Exact same people would get those notices.
yeah.
So, to answer that first question, it is possible, but there is also a second separate process that would go through to
Yep.
allow that.
It is possible, but it would require city approval, same process as what we're doing tonight. In regards to the, kind of some of the second questions, I can try to answer
runoff.
those, and then I can lean on Dan Hansen, our city engineer, to fill in any gaps here. But in regards to wetland mitigation, the subject property we did receive an application to replat the property, I think in 2022. That was the Dakota Medical Foundation subdivision. That went through the Planning and Zoning Commission. Some of you may recall that. As part of that application, they did go through the wetland identification process, and wetlands were identified at that time. And that's a requirement for all development, is that any identified wetlands would need to be mitigated. That can be done in a number of different ways, but the applicant has indicated that they would be purchasing wetland credits in order to offset the removal of the wetlands on this site. In regards to water quality and runoff from existing sites, this site would be subject to our standard stormwater requirements in terms of, and those are the details I'll let the city engineer answer.
Thank you. Aaron actually stole most of my glory by answering most of the questions there. But yes, as he said, that the wetlands that were determined to be there are able to be mitigated. And when the explanation of that process, as Aaron stated, is that there are several companies out there that establish wetland banks, and they sell credits into those banks. So basically what it is the Corps does not want us to lose wetlands, so when you take away some wetlands here, you have to buy bank credits where other wetlands have been created, so that way that there's not a net loss of wetlands in the area. After that mitigation happens, those wetlands can be turned into parking lot. They no longer exist. They've been mitigated. And so there wouldn't be like a natural wetland that's out there that's basically receiving surface water from an oil changing station that would be allowed to do that. Also, I know that there are oil separators and things internally to these places that do handle a lot of the runoff and the oils and the different things that would be going down drains. It's not just hard piped into the storm sewer system that would end up in a pond. So that's why you wouldn't see a plume of oil across, a sheen of oil across a local pond. There would be some requirements that are met for that. And then as far as the stormwater requirements, there is regional retention in the area that was required when it was developed. There's a big pond across the street.
So that pond is also tied to this chunk of land,
I believe so.
as far as
So, and
the retention requirements.
And when the initial development happens, there is a percent impervious that is typically allocated to a development. For the light industrial, I believe it would have been an 80%. 80% of the land area would be able to be impervious. And what that does is it controls the runoff rate. And so the ponds would have been designed to control basically the ultimate outlet from those ponds into the waterways of the state. So that way it's not just, it's basically taking the peaks off of the flows during high rain events. It is covered under our stormwater policy, so there shouldn't be issues as far as anything just draining off into a wetland and being able to soak in and contaminate any kind of groundwater issues there. And the other thing that I would like to just kind of clarify, that just because it's called a wetland, it's not your standard. A lot of people think of that as a marshy area with cattails and things like that. All it means is there's hydrated soils continually, so that it shows when they go out there and they look at it. They call it hydric soils. There's things that they can look for. So they've identified these areas, and it's basically, from back in the day, there was a ditch or a swale that ran through the property, and that swale is what was identified as the wetland in this situation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other comment or input from the public? Seeing none, I will close that portion of the application. Commissioners, questions? Thoughts?
Aaron, I got a question. This area is zoned light commercial now. but there's also a corridor overlay because of the interstate. We're being presented a conditional use permit. Is that because of the corridor overlay?
No. The conditional use permit requirement is a standard of the C light commercial zoning district. There are a number of uses that are permitted by right within that zoning district. The applicant listed some of those here earlier tonight, and there's a list of specific uses that are conditional uses, which require the conditional use permit in order to be allowable within that zoning district.
Sorry, maybe if you could summarize for us, what would be a allowable use of this property without the conditional use permit?
Yeah. I don't have the list in front of me, so I am going off memory here,
You gotta
but
go from memory.
I believe that the list that the applicant provided earlier is, thank you. So she actually has the ordinance here. But, retail businesses such as general merchandise, food, liquor, hardware, so your general restaurants, bars. Retail.
Retail sales,
Yep.
it does not require conditional use permit.
Correct. Yep. So the example given earlier, a Target could go in there tomorrow without any, or the land is considered entitled for that type of use.
Refresh my memory, the Costco did not have a conditional use permit on that property there, nor did Duluth.
I don't know the history of that site off the top of my head, but if it was in the light commercial zoning district, it would not have required a conditional use
And
permit.
the medical facilities to the west,
Some of those were originally in a
conditional use,
office
right?
zoning district, and I believe there was a rezone to the light commercial zoning district as part of that. So that's a little different, but
Okay.
I think another one that was worth noting is the automobile service stations. So kind of light repair, your oil changes, things like that. That type of use is permitted by right also.
So wait, so a dealership is conditional use permit, but a service center is
Correct.
zoned.
Yep. And the service center does not include major repairs, so it's not a major repair body shop.
So, like an oil change, alignments,
Yep.
those type of
Yep, correct.
tires.
Tires, yep.
Okay. Car wash. That kind of stuff is it?
Correct.
No questions. Seems to me like there are, one of the biggest concerns that I heard, certainly the safety, of course. But the potential for it to grow even bigger and get even closer and encroach. Because the highway is there. It's not forest that we're bumping up next to. There is lights and traffic and noise certainly related to the neighboring retail, but perhaps that's a little further. Is there an appropriate way to restrict that expansion on the southern portion? I know that maybe is correct, and not, well, it's that this approval is limited to the northern portion that we were discussing, but it does not preclude a future consideration of the southern portion for this same use, dealership.
Can the developer agree not to come back for a conditional use or another car dealership
And I'm
on the southern portion? We make that stick.
Yeah, I think if the developer were open to it, that's something we could work into a conditional use permit agreement.
From a legal standpoint, we require the applicant to sign the conditional use permit. And so with that condition and the conditional use permit,
So that sounds like there is a way to limit the southern portion of this property from being considered in the future for
Well,
dealerships.
maybe just to specify that a little clearer. So the recommended condition is to restrict the auto sales use on the southern portion of the property. And so if it's approved as recommended, that would be written into the conditional use permit agreement. However, that does not preclude somebody to make the request to modify that agreement in the future. And I'll have the city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't tie the hands of a future city commission when it comes to something like that.
Somebody can come back and ask for that in the future, whether, I don't know if the planning commission and the city commission would consent to an amendment, but that's always possible, so we can ask.
Okay.
And putting it, a restriction on the current owners wouldn't preclude another auto business from coming in and asking as well, right? Like, we can maybe kind of tie the hands of this group, but we can't stop somebody else from coming in and asking to develop it. But again, it would have to go through this process, and we'd have to cover it or something, right?
Conditional use permit runs beforehand, it doesn't.
Okay.
So even if we have a Nissan dealership today, they sell it to a Mercedes dealership, next year, it would be by.
Unless amended. So what we are approving now, with the conditions as you've proposed, does restrict it. It just doesn't, we can't preclude a future application for an amendment to that, but we are basically saying the southern half is not for this, for a dealership use.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners, any other questions?
I can certainly see as a homeowner not wanting a car dealership, then, that visual distance and the light being a concern and the safety being a concern. But balancing that with, they could throw a Target in there tomorrow with a liquor store. I don't like that either. I feel like it's, might be kind of six of one, half dozen of the other. But I certainly see both sides.
Yeah, I guess I understand the concerns and appreciate everybody showing up tonight and your input on this. I think, as our comp plan shows, we, as a community, we want and need more tax-paying businesses, commercial development across our community. And frankly, this is a zoned commercial area right along the interstate where it's going to be developed into some commercial activity. Talking about the traffic counts that we heard tonight, between customers, test drives, and staff, we're talking about 130 drives per day over a 10-hour day. That's 13 cars an hour. Pretty insignificant. I've probably taken 13 trips to Ace Hardware in an hour myself when I'm trying to do a homeowner project and forget the stuff I needed to buy. I live in this area, and I ride my bike up there and drive up in this area quite a bit. I understand the congestion with Costco, certainly on Saturdays and Sundays. I think the city's working hard to put in some traffic control devices to try to limit that. At the same time, there are other lots south of this area and on the east side of the North Pond that are likely going to be continued to develop. And so just because we would restrict this doesn't mean that traffic is not going to continue to be an issue as we have growing areas in a commercial area adjacent to the interstate. Appreciate Gateway's interest in investing in West Fargo. I guess all that being said, I would move to approve with the conditions or the recommendations noted.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the application as submitted with the 4 recommended conditions noted by staff. Any further discussion before vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thank you to everybody for your thoughts and input on this. Next item is public hearing A24-11 North Pond at the Preserve. This is for a request for a replat of that southern portion, I believe, right? 450 23rd Avenue East, Lot 1, Block 1 of North Pond at the Preserve, 14th edition. And it's been requested to continue to June 11th, 2024 meeting. Any objections to continue this to next month's meeting?
You want a motion, Aaron?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to continue this topic to next month's meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, continue to next month.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes?
We are having some technical difficulties with monitors here. So I would maybe just ask for a 5-minute recess. We can try and hook up a laptop to get.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I like to see the documentation while we're going, and I can't pull it up on my phone. That'd be great.
Yeah, my iPad went dead.
Couple of minutes, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
so we get to the next item, which is the Brooks Harbor 5th edition.
Yeah, and I did my laptop, he did his, and then we tried a couple times.
Yeah,
It shouldn't go.
God, if a target went in there, disaster.
Yeah. I still remember when we approved the Rivers Bend to start with, and it was a gated community, and there were quite a few objections to it being a gated. It is a great area. I like riding my bike there. The parks and everything, it's wonderful. My wife would too, especially if it was a super Target with the groceries.
Yeah, and the liquor. I can imagine it.
No, but it's one of those.
I wish we could pick what goes where, but you have to have the people willing to do it.
I wish the businesses were put in first and then the residential.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the order doesn't always.
Yeah.
That whole curved road?
We watched it happen in Brooks because we were one of the first ones over there. The lights came in, like all of that down 32nd and up on Cheyenne. None of that was there. Like we've just watched it all.
When I moved, and I'm in Shadowwood,
Oh, yeah.
32nd was still just a 2-lane,
Yeah. Right?
and Cheyenne was as well.
Yeah. Price of progress. But I do really love having the lights.
And I could see all the way to the highway
Yeah.
from my place, because there was nothing.
Yeah. When we first built in Bennington, I could see the Harley Davidson dealership.
okay.
And now it's like 27 blocks worth of houses in between me and me, because we're like almost on the conversion.
Hey, it looks like we got it.
Hey.
Okay, we'll wait a minute till Commissioner Dodds gets back. Good job. I would have dropped a few swear words, trying to get that working again.
Sunset.
Yes, okay. We'll reconvene for the last item in the regular agenda. Public hearing A 24-12, Brooks Harbor, 5th edition, a request for a planned unit development at 2250 Fifth Avenue Street West to build townhouse-style apartments, Lot 3, Block 3 of Brooks Harbor, 5th edition.
All right. So, Brooks Harbor 5th Edition is a request for a planned unit development for a proposed 52-unit townhome development. Subject property is located at 2250 5th Street West, which is just east of the Brooks Harbor Elementary School. Again, I pulled up the aerial image here just to give you a sense of where the property is at. The applicant is Brookstone Property, represented tonight by Miranda Bergdahl and Matthew Hoff. The purpose of this application is to entitle the subject property for the construction of the proposed townhome development. The proposed development includes 52 dwelling units within 16 threeplex buildings and 1 fourplex building. Included in your staff report is some project description from the applicant here. I'll just zoom down to the kind of the layout here, site plan. So again, 16 threeplex buildings and 1 fourplex building for 52 units total. 3 of the buildings would front 5th Street West, with the remainder taking access from an internal system of private drives, as shown on the site plan. The development would take place on a single lot, and there is no intention to subdivide the individual units or anything like that. The PUD would utilize the R2, which is a multifamily zoning designation, district standards with modification to the required 12-foot interior side setback, which would be reduced to 8 feet as part of this application. So that would be on the north side of the property there. Additionally, staff would recommend additional design standards if the proposed PUD were to be approved, which are included in the staff recommendation, which I'll get to here shortly. Also included, along with the site plan here, is the project narrative from the applicant, which includes additional design details that the applicant is looking to employ here with the development, including some deviation in building materials. They've got a couple of renderings that are included in your packet here, just to kind of give you a sense of what the look and feel of the proposed units would be. Kind of zoom in on some of these here. This would be a private development with no public infrastructure within the PUD. Here again, there is a likelihood that there are some wetlands located on the subject property today, which is a vacant lot. There are some low-lying lands. Those have not been delineated yet, but we do have a condition of approval here that would be taken care of prior to any building permits being issued for the site as well. Public notices were sent out to owners of neighboring properties within 150 feet of the subject property. Several comments have been received to date. Emails received prior to the publication of this meeting are included in the staff report. And here again, we did receive one additional comment today that was handed out to you prior to the meeting tonight. In summary, most of these comments express concern regarding potential increased traffic, especially in relation to the school, but also in relation to exacerbating existing conditions within the neighborhood, more specifically during the AM peak hour. That is a known issue, a pretty well-documented issue in terms of 26th Avenue at the intersection of Cheyenne Street as people are leaving the neighborhood in the morning, trying to take a left-hand turn to drive north on Cheyenne to the interstate area. There's also been comments expressing concerns over reduced property values with the proposed project here, and then also the concerns over overcrowding with the adjacent Brooks Harbor Elementary School with the addition of 52 additional units to the neighborhood. 2 additional comments were also submitted in support of the project, noting the need for affordable housing options within the community as well. Regarding some of the concerns raised, responses from several departments and partner entities were included in the staff report there. Additionally, the city engineer is present and can speak to some of the existing traffic concerns. It is worth noting that any development of this location is anticipated to add to the existing traffic concerns. Additionally, staff would just note that school enrollment numbers tend to fluctuate over time, and so just to think about the long-term, longevity of this neighborhood, not just in terms of tomorrow. There are several aspects of the West Fargo 2.0 comprehensive plan that are worth noting and that are outlined in the staff report there in relation to the proposed PUD. Number one, West Fargo 2.0 seeks to grow the city's economy and increase the commercial tax base by increasing the ratio of jobs and businesses in relation to residential land uses. The subject property has previously been zoned for commercial, office, and recreational uses. If approved, the proposed PUD would eliminate the potential for such uses and would increase the residential land use in relation to those other land uses. West Fargo 2.0 also recognizes the need for housing and to diversify the type of housing stock within the city, which is currently dominated by single-family detached units. The proposed subject would add to the diversity of housing options available within the city of West Fargo. And lastly, for new residential areas, the comp plan also places an emphasis on improved neighborhood and housing design, including such things as de-emphasizing garages, incorporating front porches, additional trees and landscaping, etc. So overall, staff does find that there are both pros and cons to the proposed PUD as outlined in the staff report. If commissioners find that the proposal is largely consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, it is recommended that the PUD be approved with conditions. And so the conditions I'll pull up here. Condition number one, the PUD concept development plan shall be modified as follows prior to the consideration of the detailed development plan. Just a quick side note here, with any planned unit development, this is a multi-step process. Step number one is the rezoning and approval of the sorry, I'm blanking on the terminology here, concept development plan. That gets approved first. It's conceptual in nature. The applicant then comes forward with the detailed development plans, and that gets reviewed again by the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the City Commission. And so before the detailed development plan, staff would be looking for the following modifications. The decks shown on the concept development plan shall be removed from the required buffer yard on the south side of the lot. On the south side there, that does abut a residential zoning district, and so there is a required minimum 20-foot landscape buffer that would be required along the south end of the property to buffer the residents to the south.
I'm sorry, 20 feet to the building or 20 feet?
Yeah, I'll just flip back and forth here between the conditions and the site plan. So you can kind of see on their site plan here, there is a row of trees illustrated. There is a required 20-foot strip of land that needs to be located between the south property line going north, 20 feet of landscape buffer as required by our landscaping section of the zoning code. And so you can see those little dashed lines there. Those are indicating decks that would be off the back of those units. They're not dimensioned on the site plan specifically. Staff just wants to make sure that those decks are indeed out of that 20-foot buffer area.
But they're two-story townhomes.
Correct.
And I'm assuming the back deck area is where a kitchen or something would be proposed.
Yeah, there are building plans also included as attachments to kind of show the layout of the.
Sorry to interrupt.
Nope, you're good. Additionally, decks shall not encroach more than half the distance into any required setback. And so that relates to the north side where some of the proposed deck locations appear to encroach beyond half the distance into a required setback, which would violate the typical requirement of our zoning standards there. And so those should be pulled back also. The third point there, a minimum 4-foot tall opaque screen or equivalent landscape buffer shall be placed between the vehicular parking / circulation area on the western property line. So that's, you can see my cursor here, that's referring to some of these overflow parking areas. Right now, the paving goes all the way up to the property line adjacent to the park property to the west. We would just be looking for that parking area to be buffered from the park. The fourth point here is that detail is added to their site plan regarding demarcation and or separation of vehicle circulation and parking areas in relation to the pedestrian sidewalk. And that's referring to, they do have a proposed 5-foot sidewalk. You can see on the southern portion of their site plan that would basically link the public sidewalk on the east of the property within the 5th Street right-of-way. It would run east-west, kind of across the driveways of some of those southern units. And then it would actually extend into the Park District property adjacent to the west, and then connect to an existing multi-use path within the Park District property. The applicant has gotten the thumbs up or some preliminary approval from the Park District that they would be in favor of such a connection on the Park District property. They would just want to be involved in some of the final design if it were to move forward. Staff points this out because it does look like the driveways are 21 feet, and with a 5-foot sidewalk, it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for vehicles that are parked in the driveway. There may be some overhang there into the sidewalk area. So we would just be looking for a little bit more definition with how that would lay out and how we would ensure that the sidewalk remains viable. So that's the summary of the modifications that staff would be recommending to the concept development plan. Condition number 2, the development standards for the proposed PUD shall include the following. Development will abide by the R2 limited multiple dwelling district standards aside from the following. The north interior side setback shall be reduced from 12 feet to 8 feet. And so all that is, it's establishing the development regulations for the PUD here.
So that would be an exception to R2 requirements.
Correct. Yep. So with the PUD does allow flexibility from standard zoning regulations. It allows very much for customization of the development standards. In this case, the development would follow the R2 standards with the exception of the north setback, which would deviate by 4 feet from what is standard. And so with any PUD, it is intended to be somewhat of a give and take. And so with that flexibility, they are required to kind of demonstrate and illustrate and show their site plans that do get documented and incorporated into the PUD. And then in addition to that, the city may include some additional design standards and whatnot in order to alleviate some of those concerns. And so with that, that is what staff is recommending in terms of some additional building material standards here. So some building material standards for the principal material for the structures, requiring exterior walls to be constructed or clad with natural stones, synthetic stone, brick, stucco, integrally colored and textured concrete masonry units or systems, and then exterior insulation finish systems, also known as EIFS, or fiber cement. The intent here is to get a product that is durable and long-lasting into the future. We don't want this to be falling apart 20, 30 years from now. There is some, it does allow for some steel lap siding, steel batten siding as well, so long as it doesn't exceed 75% of the building elevation. Some allocation of some accent materials in addition to those principal materials. And then point number 3 there, for any building facade facing the public right-of-way, at least 50% of those exterior walls shall again be constructed with natural stone, synthetic stone, brick, integrally colored textured concrete masonry units. And so that includes those units that front 5th Street, in addition to the north and south units that have sidewalls facing the public right-of-way. Item 2C is related to landscaping. At least 50% of the required plant units shall be in the form of trees as opposed to small shrubs and things. And then at least 50% of the required plant units shall be located within 75 feet of the public right-of-way. The intention there is to push some of that landscaping closer to the public realm. And so these conditions are really trying to focus on how this project interfaces with the public environment, the neighborhood. So as you're taking a walk around the block, for example, it isn't just a sea of parking lots and garages, to try and break up some of that monotony, if you will. Lastly, the maximum driveway width is 40 feet, and the request here would be a condition that a minimum 5-foot landscape buffer is required between driveways. And so as shown on the site plan there are multiple driveways that go into the site here. The intent here is to break up the concrete paving. You can see in some of their initial drawings, there is quite a bit of these large concrete aprons. They are willing to break that up with some landscape between the individual units. And just to clarify, the applicant wanted to clarify that the maximum driveway width is 40 feet for individual driveways. That's not in totality. Item 3, preliminary wetland delineation be completed by a certified professional prior to detailed development plan submittal. Again, that relates back to the high likelihood of wetlands being present on the site. And lastly, that a signed PUD agreement is received and approved in conjunction with the detailed development plans. So again, that detailed development, that PUD agreement would incorporate these recommended conditions into a formal agreement. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have for staff. I know the applicant would like to say a few words on this project as well, and this is a public hearing.
Thank you. Public hearing. I will open it up for public comment and input. We can start with the applicant, if that makes sense. Again, as the last one, please identify yourself.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Matthew Hoff. I'm with Brookstone Property, and I appreciate your time here tonight. I had a few things to say, but Aaron does such a good explicit job, I'll probably skip over quite a bit of it. As mentioned, it's a 52-unit townhome project in Brooks Harbor with an increased level of construction that's not generally seen on this level of housing. Specifically, the intent of the development is to address the workforce housing shortage that we have within the city. Over the last several years, the cost of housing has drastically increased, and this is due both in terms of cost of construction, but also interest rates. And it's made what once was affordable for teachers and policemen, fire workers and nurses quite unaffordable. We also develop entry-level product, and people in that group have all but vanished because it's become so unaffordable. So this project is to try to bridge that gap between apartments and home ownership. As a whole, the city of West Fargo is 34% rental, but this area of town is less than 10%. This product provides a diverse option of housing that is currently undersupplied in this area, and that meets the objectives of the West Fargo 2.0 study. We originally proposed a number of different architectural requirements that we were putting on ourselves through the PUD, and I have to thank planning and zoning for giving us a bunch of other ones. It's free architectural advice, and we are happy to take all those into our plans. I think that they emphasize the neighborhood well and improves the housing design. That's also part of what the city of West Fargo wants to see, and we're happy to take on all of those. We did reach out to all the neighbors that are in this area. We did door to door. We also did letters. We received some emails from some of the neighbors, and some have written in the city of West Fargo, and I'm sure you have those in front of you. And I'm happy to continue conversations here at this meeting and address any of the concerns. But as Aaron had brought up, there's 4 kind of categories that I kind of felt that there were some concerns in just a moment to talk a little bit about some of those. One of them is the lowness of the lot, that there's some low spots and there's some drainage concerns. We will, of course, address the concerns on our lot through our engineering, but some of them seem to also have some problems in their backyards, and those are good opportunities for us as a developer to address those. So we're happy to continue talking about those. If anybody wants to bring those specific ones up to us, we're happy to try to integrate them into our plans. The impact to the West Fargo public schools is certainly one that got brought up a lot. And according to the city of West Fargo, there's 541 students that are enrolled at the Brooks Harbor Elementary School. In the entire Brooks Harbor district, there are 2,500 housing units, which makes for 1 student per 4.62 housing units. At this rate, the Brooks Harbor townhomes would add 11 students on an ongoing basis to the school. Traffic was probably the largest concern that was brought up, and this is in a couple of different ways. One of them is that any development in the neighborhood is going to increase traffic, which Aaron brought up. The previously approved project, according to the West Fargo Engineering Department, would add about 6,600 daily trips to that area, 400 of them in the morning rush hour time, and about 500 of them during the evening rush hour time. So in terms of intensity, this is on the very low end. This is a residential product that would help that problem. If anything, it's probably 10% or less of those numbers on a daily basis. The other big one was the intersection at 5th and 26th, excuse me. And we support a turn lane in that location. We're happy to pay our part in that. We also own some of the property in that corner where that intersection is, and we agree that that needs to be addressed. And we're happy to be a part of that. The other one is park access, and I have to apologize, we just had a mistake on that plan that showed that 5 feet as part of the driveway. It's supposed to be in addition to, so we'll make sure that we correct that so that that 5 feet isn't encroaching on the driveway area. That got brought up by a number of people that they use that lot right now as access to get to that park, and we're happy to continue that. We can create a public access through there on a sidewalk, goes from the public street on 5th through the development and through the pavement that we're proposing with the City of West Fargo parks. So we can still provide them access to get through there. I think the last thing that's just important to bring up is just the history of the piece. It's been a couple of different things over the past. Originally, Village Family Services had it. I think it was maybe donated or given to them in some way. And a PUD, commercial PUD, was granted for them to do what they were going to do on that. They decided not to do that anymore, and it was repurchased and proposed as that private hockey arena. Again, a commercial PUD for that spot. I think it's a difficult commercial piece. I think it's got really difficult access to it, and I think the visibility once west of that is developed, you wouldn't be able to even see hardly these townhomes. And so I think it's a good use for workforce housing to try to confront that problem that we have within the city. This is a good spot for that, especially with its proximity to the school. And I hope you agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, input from the public at this time?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Tyler Erickson. I live at 1240 Barnes Drive West. It's about 3 or 4 blocks northwest of this planned development. So really my comments, I don't know if you are familiar with me, but I'm running for West Fargo City Commission. And one of the principles I believe in is that, as a city, we need to provide more, diverse housing and just more housing in general, right? From property tax values being through the roof, partially due in part because of the lack of housing supply that we have, right? My general concern with this proposed development, it really surrounds the fact of its proximity to the public school district, of course, right? And so I submitted my comments. It's pretty clear. I won't reiterate everything that I said, but I just want to make a couple of points. As the applicant pointed out, if there's workforce housing shortages, maybe that should have been taken care of, prior to when all the development was happening, right? If that's the primary concern and that's the need that needs to be met, I think that there's plenty of other opportunities that could have been taken advantage of, rather than right next to the school, next to a school that is ever growing, right? Just to highlight the comments that the public school district made, right? They unequivocally agree, I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but that they're at capacity and over capacity, all the time. And right, so, as you know from my comments, I don't have any school-age children yet, but I've got 2 kids under 2, and it's, this is we don't make decisions, right, in our lives or at the commission level or at the P&Z level, right, with 1 or 2 years in mind, right? We're making a 5, 10, 15-year decision. I wholeheartedly believe in the fact that we need to provide diverse housing and a increased supply of housing. But the simple fact that this is right next to the school and it's going to have to grow, I guess I don't know, the zoning, challenges in that, but, the simple fact that it's going to continue to grow, there's going to be more kids that need to be pumped into that school, staff, it's growing. I mean, it's an undeniable fact. And I should have stated at the beginning, right, I'm clearly in opposition to this development. So the school district's comments, I just wanted to highlight that. And let's say that even if this development doesn't contribute any kids to the school, I think, right, I mean, the simple fact that we're at capacity and we're oscillating at overcapacity all the time, that you can't ignore that, right? And I understand that that's not within the purview of this board or the city commission. But if we always make decisions siloed without consideration of other governmental entities and their decisions that are ultimately going to affect the residents that you're making decisions for as well, that's not good policy in my mind. If we're ignoring or we're making decisions in siloed ways without due consideration to other governmental entities and their challenges that they're facing. The traffic concerns, I think it's clear, from the pictures that were submitted, there's going to be challenges there, whether it's commercial, residential, it's only going to contribute and it's only going to get worse. Now, that leads me to the next point. Is underdevelopment and no development the answer? I don't think so, but I don't think right now when the school district is at capacity and over capacity, that the best thing to do is build right next to it. We're making a 30, 50, 60-year decision with all of this residential housing here, all the while knowing that there's clear evidence that indicates that there's so many potential issues. And I just from sitting in the gallery today, right, the safety concerns and the children, I'm sure it's a reoccurring theme that you get all the time. But I mean, this cannot be overstressed in this pocket of Brooks Harbor. The whole area is meant for school-age children to be and to feel safe, and their parents to feel safe for them to be at, right? So if this development was going up anywhere else, I would generally be in support of it. But the fact that it's so close to the school, that's inevitably going to grow that way because there's nowhere else to go in that area unless there's zoning concerns. To make the decision to approve this application for this development means that you're making a decision, to me, while ignoring the challenges and the needs of other governmental entities in the area.
So may I ask a clarifying question on that statement?
Yes.
So you're saying grow, that there's plans to expand the school?
So I don't have any
expand the
knowledge of
school?
that, right? I don't think that there is, but,
Okay.
right.
And you're in opposition of residential to be next to the school?
Right, yes. So, right, and so just to clarify that, right, it's whether you put commercial there or residential,
So commercial in your mind is more appropriate next to the school?
neither would be, right? If we're going to make a decision to put something there while knowing that the school is going to be growing that way, because that's the only way that they could grow, in my mind, if you go over on that road, that's the only way that they can move, is to the east into that lot,
Right.
if
Well,
that's possible.
I'm not aware of any expansion of that school.
Totally. I mean, I think it just to me, it logically follows if we're oscillating at capacity or over capacity that it's going to have to grow, right? Again, right, that leads to the idea that underdevelopment would be the next best answer, and that's just a temporary thing. I think we can take our foot off the gas and be okay for a little while, try to gauge what the challenges are for the public school district and for the residents in the area. Yeah, I would just conclude my comments with, to me, to approve this plan, despite all of the challenges that we're going to have in a couple of years with space and staffing needs and inevitable growth on the public school district side, it would be short-sighted to approve this plan at this time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a statement for me. I mean, if we stop developing because West Fargo schools are plumb full, we'd have stopped developing, 30 years ago. Because they've always been plumb full, and they're always over capacity when we vote on bond issues to bring up new ones. So, I mean, that's not really our job. I think we look at the development, we can't tell the school district, we're not gonna do this because you guys are full. They're always full. And they're gonna continue to be that full as long as we keep growing.
If I may follow up on that comment. Right, I think the difference here is that we're within 300 yards of the school. This is right next to the school. It's unique in that way, and that's why it should be given more consideration. If, like I said, if it was further away from the actual school itself, I would probably be in favor of it.
But if it was in the same district, it would put the same pressure on the school. What happens then is lines get moved and kids get put to different elementaries when that elementary's at capacity.
The fact remains, though, that this development would inhibit the growth, the physical growth of the school there, in that area. So, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for hearing us out. My name is Sarah Griesbach. I live at 606 23rd Avenue West, so I'm adjacent to this property. If you would wish, I have a visual, if that's okay.
You sent an email with the picture, right?
I sent an email, and those concerns, I'm not going to reiterate because they were in the packet, but after reviewing the packet, new concerns came up. So that image is of the Diamond Creek townhomes at the corner of Cheyenne and 26th. And I'm trying to show what about 23 feet looks like between building and property line, and also proposed, I'm assuming there was a proposed natural barrier as well, but you can only see maybe 2 trees that survived. So when we're talking about natural buffers, especially behind our houses, there's always a northwest wind. And even when they were remodeling the school, some debris that was loose, hit my siding on my house. It got so violent. So I'm not sure how trees are going to solve a buffer problem if it's going to take a long time to grow. So anyway, I just wanted to show that visual of how close 20 to 25 feet with or without a deck would be to our property lines, which my husband and I mean, we just have a landing and stairs and have a privacy fence. So we spent our money on privacy, not to have people right on top of us, basically, if those decks, which they said they're suggesting not go in, but I'm just trying to show that example. Another consideration that came up outside of my original email, when reviewing the 2 letters from the entities that are in favor of this, well, they have affiliation with Magnum, but also when talking about company housing, basically, I mean, in my mind, it kind of sounds like company housing when they're saying they want to retain high school and college graduates and attract people from other parts of the country. So I'm just wondering what kind of the rent range is going to be for something like this, where people would be enticed enough to come here, but not be in apartments. So I'm just wondering if it's going to be company housing for all finish or some of these other businesses mentioned, because it was kind of specific that they're trying to find company housing. And if they're bringing families, that's one thing, but if it's just individuals bunking together, right next to the school, what does that look like? So, and then again, too, talking about the 5th Street, what that parking situation looks like, because parking currently isn't allowed on either side. So when you have those driveways there and people have guests or deliveries, what does that, or older kids living there that aren't part of the elementary, but they have cars. So let's say one house has 3 or 4 cars. What does that parking situation look like? So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. My name is Chad Olson. I'm at 504 23rd. I'm one of the corner houses of this proposed development. Former postmaster of West Fargo, Caston, and currently the postmaster of the fastest growing city right now, which is in West Fargo. I'm currently dealing with a lot of this stuff, and right now, where I have the issue with this particular diagram, the structure that they have it is so compressed. Okay, so that does is create a lot of traffic. We've already got a ton of traffic right now. And then also we have every morning in the winter, this winter, last winter was great actually, but winter before 5 o'clock in the morning, we've complained, these are rentals, so down from me are all rentals, and they're all snow blowing at 5 a.m. You're gonna have the same issue with these guys. Once these guys come in and they develop, they leave. And that's the same thing we're running into everywhere I go. They build it, they want to they build it for the best profit, and they take off. We need something back there, no doubt about it. I'm getting tired of all that snow coming in. I'm ending up having drifts this high in between me and my neighborhood. But this particular plan is not good for any of the things that are going on back there. They got traffic all the way back from the school all the way back to my house almost. I've got people, I keep the driveways clean on the side streets. This is gonna make it way worse. This is compressed. You can have a lot of people in a little area. You could have more injuries, possibly. I don't have statistics in front of me, okay? But I know when you compress things and you get a lot of people in a small area with little driveways, there's more people don't pay attention. We know people don't drive out there and pay attention. They're texting, etc. So I would like to work with Brookstone if they could come up with something different. I work with them now currently on other things in the city that I'm in right now, along with other developers. But this is, to me, is more pure profit, not what we need in this particular area. It's a bad area to be in. If it was a different area, that'd be different. This road is terrible. Okay, and then we're gonna have, you got the trucks coming in, they're gonna be hauling in, the roads are already bad. They have the trucks coming in, then you're gonna have the traffic. There will be wear and tear on those roads, and they're already terrible. Truthfully, I built the house in 2015, and I'm not sure who built the roads in, but it's not very good. So, I appreciate you guys listening to me and taking the time for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Commissioners. My name is Jason Toso. I live on 23rd Avenue, just a couple houses away from the limits, the outreach for this effort. So I think everyone, and even the report, has done a good job of laying out just the challenges that this faces and that this area poses. So for lack of not wanting to reiterate all of the comments that have come, but this was some data, right? So Matthew was kind enough to provide the current school count, which I understand we can't make decisions in a silo, but we also have to consider the kicking the can down the road to somebody else, right? They're at 541. So, and the current facility is currently staffed up and ready for 456. So we're already over capacity by those types of figures. And in addition to that, I understand the math equations and adding 11 students per capita when we put 52 units, mind you, 4-bedroom units. It's not really single people that live in the 4-bedroom units. In addition to that, none of those individuals like to live right by a school. So I would say that metric is somewhat flawed for this close to the area. And we can expect at least to have one child. Even on our street, it's all primarily elementary age children. So, and as we've seen, even in the short lifespan of some of that, people, as the kids get older, they have moved off, and other ones have come in with young age children. So another area of concern, in addition to the safety factor, is it all right if I? Oh.
I don't know how to make it work.
Oh, how to use that one.
It's a little finicky here.
Did it die on us again?
It's just flashing at us now.
Well, either way, do you have the packets? Page 13.
I was relying on you guys.
Okay. So page 13. It's to the, it's on the drawings.
This one? Or the,
You're gonna have to,
here.
I can take it if you want. So. All right. So understanding the boundaries, and we're adjacent to the school property. Right now, the actual physical structure of it is a mere 50 feet away, right, from school property. Or, excuse me, West Fargo Parks property, shared property with the school, because they both utilize that as part of the development of the school in the first place. And that is the shared recess area. So having lived where I live, I can see the children when they're outside playing on the recess, and I can tell you that that line does not exist in their minds, regardless of if the individual who is dressed in a vest and has a air horn is out there or not. But they are all over that area, playing football, playing catch, playing tag, and they will be running in the backyards of those individuals. So just wanted to point that out as far as the density. As far as, in terms of the development of the space, where I differ from Tyler is I do think the space needs to be developed. I just wanted to see it stay in the commercial zoning that it's currently in. So the multifamily application in this area that is already, even if you look at just an overall map, very high density housing, as many have said here today. Single family dwellings litter the area. Nice homes, but there's a lot of them, and I think our school numbers reflect that. So I'm not opposed to developing it, and I think that the community isn't either, as can be seen by their willingness to do the hockey arena. So we anticipate that there would be some additional items that were needed for, road recommendations on Fifth, the turn lane and everything, but I would much rather pay any specials for that if it is a commercial space that is going into this area, as opposed to very, very high density rent units that close to the school in this area that is already experiencing a lot of overflow. So that's my opinion. Just to reiterate one other item with the current plan, as people have mentioned, the backup on 5th Street, and there are some photos in your packet that you can see. Overflow parking for this development is street parking planned. They're gonna expand 5th Street 5 foot to on the east side of the road, and it would be street parking. So twice a day, every day, that will be backed up because the parents aren't going anywhere, in addition to the cars that will be parked on the street and the individuals leaving their communities. So that's all I have. I appreciate your time. I know you guys have to make tough decisions, and so appreciate you hearing us out, though. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments or input from the public?
Oh, sorry. Hello, my name is Heather Kleinwachter, and I live on 522 23rd Avenue West, so my property is adjacent to this property. Just some concerns that I have. I just want to reiterate, of course, that those houses will be right next to my property line. I think there should just be more space between my line and that line. Again, the school has been mentioned multiple times. Again, like you said, you can't help the school's maximum capacity. But again, as a concerned mom, my kid, so before this new addition, my kid took art in his classroom because they had to take over the art room classroom. And he did not like that. And he was very upset. So when you take away the amenities that these kids love because they're at max capacity, it does affect them. And that is a concern as a mom. The other concern is the traffic. So with the parking on 5th Street and at pickup time, and if cars want to get home and they use 5th Street, a way to get faster, they'll go down 23rd Street. And they don't go down my street 5 miles per hour. They have gone down 40 miles per hour. We clocked a bus going down 40 miles per hour, a school bus. So I guarantee you that there's a lot of safety concerns around bringing in these townhomes. Just look at what else I had. My other concern is with rental property, there's changing of tenants. 23rd Avenue, I pretty much know all my neighbors. My kids know a lot of them. Having all these changing tenants come in and out, it makes the community or the neighborhood feel less a little bit, especially since we already have rental properties down Fifth Street. Why do we need any more rental properties? And again, there's also multiple undeveloped lots, which could bring in more families. So there's unregistered kids under the age of 5 right now. My neighbor right next to me has 2 kids under the age of 5, so that's gonna bring in more kids. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. I got one more item. Just wanted to recall, I believe it was 2 years ago, we were having this same discussion, and it was for the property on the north side of the school, so, which was previously zoned as commercial as well. That was the property that was previously owned by the church. And at that time, it was multifamily that was trying to get in there, and I believe the local residents were amenable to the single-family dwelling, and we changed the zoning to single-family at that time. So my outreach is that we feel like the local residents have already been amenable to the changes and done it once already, and this would just remove that final space and pack us even more. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Tracy Faltersack, and as an employee of the district, at the district office, and as a parent of Brooks Harbor student, I see the stress, and I understand you guys can't make decisions based on what the school needs at all times, but we are partners in this community. And in order to remain partners in this community, there has to be a little consideration of the amount of students that are at Brooks Harbor. My son is currently in 2nd grade and my daughter is 3, so I will have another one going there eventually. However, being that there are almost 100 kids over capacity, and being on the PTO, I see the stress of not only the staff, but of the students. Because you're gonna end up getting classrooms that are 25, 26, 27 students at a time, and there is no more room on Brooks Harbor property to add an addition. The last addition that they did for the 5th grade wing was it. So there is no other room, and Brooks Harbor is a nice area to live. It's partially why I picked it, because it is very, almost small town-like, and you know your neighbors. And if we are gonna keep adding more students to the area, it's just gonna put that much more stress on everyone. I will reiterate also about 5th Street traffic. That is backed up and backed up for at least 2 hours. Parents start lining up at about 12:30 for school to get out at 2:30. That is a long time. And if there's no widening of that street, it's not gonna be any better. Not that I'm saying that the widening should happen, but if you add in more kids, it's not gonna help the situation. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that section. Commissioners, questions? The density of this proposal is probably the biggest contributor to the challenges. Or the school-related issue, I know that's not what we're responsible for, but certainly the maintenance of this property. I mean, when I look at this drawing that's right here, the first thing I ask is, where does that snow go? And there's, That's a tough one. And then it's also two-story structure, 20 feet away from the, backyards. And that density thing, it's,
Here's the challenges I have with it, and it's been an ongoing challenge. The shape of Brooks Harbor, that area is a trapezoid, kind of goes up as a triangle and then comes down. And the access to that development is challenging at best. I mean, we have a north-south road, I don't know, what is it, 9th Street West or 8th Street, whatever it is, and we got 26th Avenue. But being humans that we are, we always want to go the shortest way, and it seems to me that the shortest way is down by Brooks Harbor and out to that corner. And if you all recall, a few months back, someone was talking about developing that commercial lot, and we had a lot of discussion about traffic and how we handle it at that particular lot. So I think this gentleman pointed it out a few years back. Someone proposed something similar to this. And in the history of my work with the city, others have done the same, and they've been rejected because of the traffic flow issues. And that's my concern, is the density. If they're putting a row of townhomes in there, that are just along, I'd say that's fine. And I know we want to follow our comp plan, but I think this area has a pretty good mix of diversity. There's R1SMs in there, and we don't control rental property. Anyone that owns a home can rent their property out. That's your decision, whether it's rental or not. But there's townhomes, there's some regular single-family homes, and it's a good diversity. And I do believe if it stays commercial, and that's why I had hopes for the hockey arena, because most of the time that would have been used at night or weekends, particularly on weekends, but obviously that didn't work out. But I think we have to be, or at least the city commission has to be very cognizant of what they put in there, again, for traffic. Because this is very congested, and there's nothing we're going to do to solve that. The more homes that go in there, the worse the traffic's going to be. And that's why, I'm like the chairman said, the density is what concerns me. Building something on there, something's probably going to be built there eventually. There's been different plans for it, but I just can't support that. And I do have a problem, again, with these developments that really don't plan for extra things like snow, visitors, extra cars. We've had other developments similar to this proposed, and those usually aren't part of the equation, so what it falls on, it ends up falling on public properties, which are streets and stuff. So that's my comment. I guess lower density project perhaps, but as proposed, I just can't see it myself, so thank you.
I live in Brooks Harbor as well, and I was just pointing to Eric where I have to park when I go pick up my daughter at the elementary school, and adding in that density. I'm all the way back behind the water tower at 2:15, school gets out at 2:30, waiting, and then there's a whole line of cars behind me. My husband has to get there at like 1 o'clock to be in the parking lot to grab her at 2:30. So, and we don't run buses because everything's within the 1 mile walk zone. So in the winter in North Dakota, you can't have your kid walk 9/10 of a mile to school without getting frostbite. So that traffic though, I don't know how that would work. I really don't. So I would agree, I'd rather see something commercial go in this space, because without a major change to the traffic flow, I just don't see how it's gonna work. And that was maybe me speaking as a Brooks Harbor resident, Commissioner.
Is there a motion in there?
There's, any other questions or comments? I am open to any motion.
Make a motion to deny the request.
It has been moved and seconded to deny the application as presented. Any further discussion prior to vote?
What density, that's a tough commercial spot.
I agree, it would have to be an
So
office building or something.
Density of housing are you comfortable with? Single-family homes, street, or what are you comfortable with?
Well, personally, yeah, that would be ideal if you put in like 3-4 lots, but that's probably not gonna happen. But perhaps like to the north of Brooks Harbor, what they ended up doing is putting in, is a regular city street with, I don't know how many units are in those townhomes, but they're 2 or 3 units. So, and they all access the street, they have off-street parking, the cars are off and stuff like that. So I just think something lower density, when you're putting that many units in there, that's adding a lot of cars and traffic and individuals.
And to be clear, I mean, if we do vote to deny, it's based on that we don't believe it is consistent with our plan, because it does not address the congestion aspect. Is that what I'm hearing? I don't know if there's a specific answer to your
Right.
question
I know.
in that, unfortunately. But it is, the density of it is at issue.
I was just trying to give the developer some guidance, I mean, if
Well,
we're gonna-
well, sure, yeah.
Correct,
deny
yeah,
this,
there's-
what-
I understand that.
What can they do?
I would love to see the school district offer that
Well,
property, but of course we can't.
Well, then,
That's
yeah.
We can't.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
Make
and
that happen.
I don't know if that fits with their strategy of,
Yeah.
So with the traffic, I don't think you want that school bigger, right?
It's not serving the
Good
kids that
point.
are already in the neighborhood though.
doesn't make the line any shorter.
In an ideal world, it sounds like the school, if the school bought it and put a parking lot in there, that would be ideal, but that's, we're not dealing with that tonight, and we're not dealing with the ideals.
All right, so any further discussion prior to vote? It's been moved and seconded to deny the application. All those in favor of denying the application, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
I-
Motion is denied.
No, motion is approved.
Well, the motion to deny is approved.
We're recommending to the city commission to deny.
We are recommending to the city commission to deny the application as presented. Thank you, everyone, for your input and thoughts on this, again. Okay. That is the last of the regular agenda items. Are there any non-agenda items to discuss? Motion to adjourn the regular agenda.
So moved.
Moved and seconded to adjourn the regular agenda. Those in favor, say aye. Motion, the regular agenda is adjourned. We have one discussion item on the agenda. Proposed revisions to Title IV ordinances regarding planned unit development. Zoning district. Can we do this another time?
I can be quick if you'd like, otherwise we can
Yes,
certainly do it. a different
that'd be good.
So I'll hit the highlights here, and then let you guys get out of here, and then certainly, as always, follow up with any questions or comments between now and future meetings. But in summary, we're just following up, continuing our discussions on updates, targeted updates to Title IV here. The item that we're focusing on tonight is introducing the plan unit development modifications here. There is a memo included in your meeting packet that summarizes the proposed amendments. So really just one of the things that I'll touch on here in a second is modification of the approval process for a PUD. We're also looking for additional requirements for applicants to demonstrate public benefit of the proposed PUD. That is a requirement today, but just looking to kind of emphasize that and require a little bit more on the front end from the applicant in terms of demonstrating why the city should approve their PUD. Third one here, specification of which standards are eligible for modification by PUD and which are not. So bringing some definition to what's eligible to change and what cannot be changed with the PUD. Also, addition of criteria of approval of a PUD detailed development plan in terms of some kind of guidelines, if you will, in terms of how much can a detailed development plan deviate from an approved conceptual plan in order to be approvable. Clarification of how phased PUDs and PUD amendments are handled. In some cases, we have PUDs that kind of master plan at the front end, and then they come in and do the detailed development plans in chunks as they go. Or sometimes we're looking to modify things. The current ordinance is a little confusing in terms of amendments or modifications to existing PUDs, and so just looking to clarify some of that. And then lastly, just some slight tweaks to the sign code in relation to how the PUD, or how sign code standards are applied to the PUD district. So I think what I'll do is I'll maybe just jump right down to the very last couple of pages here to give you
Anything in there on enforcement?
Sorry, what was that?
Anything in there on enforcement? Because, you know, PUDs can be very specific and in some cases unique, whereas, hey, it must be, you know, have this type of screening or something like that as a part, you know, landscaping is a part of the detail approval.
Yep.
And then the question is, well, how does that get controlled and followed up to make sure that that actually happened, what was approved?
Yep.
I'm speaking from a personal
Yes.
experience in my backyard.
Yes.
Where, you know, what we had approved, the detailed landscape requirement morphed, very much so, and it's like, okay, what do we do?
Yep.
And so that enforcement aspect is
Yep. So what you're hitting on is you know, honestly exactly why the PUD process was one of the sections that we're targeting here, because we do have many PUDs where it's not entirely clear on what exactly, you know, was approved or what was just kind of conceptually shown. And so part of the emphasis with these revisions is to clarify exactly what constitutes the PUD. And so I'll just maybe circle back to your question here in a moment, just using these graphics to help illustrate here. But what you see in front of you is our current PUD process. The PUD constitutes of 3 different steps. Step 1 is the rezoning to the PUD zoning district itself. The second component to that is the concept plan, the concept development plan, which is just conceptually, you know, their site plan in terms of what they're generally proposing. Those 2 things typically are reviewed in tandem, just like tonight. You'd review their concept development plan in addition to their request to rezone. That gets reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then because it is a rezone, it goes on to the City Commission for a second public hearing, second public hearing. And then it is a rezone ordinance, and so there is a first reading and then a second reading of that ordinance. And so you can see with step number 1 here outlined in the dashed line in red, there are, you know, it's a 3-step process, 3 different meetings, planning and zoning, and then 2 more steps at City Commission for completion of step 1. The applicant then goes and gets their detailed development plans put together in terms of the, you know, the specific plan set for development. They'll then come back. They'll be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. You'll make a recommendation, and then that the detailed development plan goes on to the City Commission for final approval. So that's the process today. What we're proposing in terms of modification is to kind of get more review on or get the City Commission to review the concept development plan and kind of approve that. And then for the detailed development plan, since we will have some more detail in terms of the ordinance, in terms of how much can the detailed development plan possibly deviate from a concept development plan. You know, really with that detailed development plan, it's really just verifying that what they're going to be constructing matches with what they said they were going to be constructing at the concept level. And so the proposal is to have the have the Planning and Zoning Commission be the approver of the detailed development plan to shave off 1 step in the process. And so the process would instead be, with step one here, kind of a three-step process: planning and zoning, city commission, and then the fourth meeting would be with step two and the planning and zoning commission approval of the detailed development plan. So currently it is a 5-step process. It's planning and zoning, 2 city commission meetings, a planning and zoning commission meeting, and then another city commission meeting. And so that's the intent there. In terms of the changes to process, there's nothing major. Another thing I'll just mention really quickly is when this was part of the agenda last month, but we opted to push it to this month. We did make some changes between last month and this month, and so if you are referring to last month's memo.
Is this in the packet?
Yep, it is. We were originally considering treating PUDs as an overlay zoning district as opposed to a base zoning district. We have gone away from that concept, and so we are wanting to keep it consistent with what we've done in the past. In terms of the PUD will be a base zoning district, but as outlined in the proposed ordinance here, we are getting some more we are trying to get some more definition in terms of the process. And so as part of the PUD, there will be a requirement that there is a base zoning district that's essentially selected as the baseline for the purposes of establishing some baseline standards. And so very similar to the last item tonight, R2 was selected as kind of the baseline standards, which is pretty consistent with how PUDs have been done in the past. We're just trying to more kind of formally incorporate that into the ordinance and make that clear that there will be a baseline zoning district established, and then any deviations from the baseline need to be documented as part of the PUD. So that's kind of the intent. And then to your original question, Mr. Chairman, in terms of some of the ambiguity in some of the past PUD districts, the intention would be to kind of formally recognize that a PUD consists of the rezoning ordinance. One of the concepts that we're kind of playing with is to actually incorporate those development standards into the actual ordinance itself. And so when the rezoning ordinance is adopted, that ordinance includes all the development standards, and then it's documented in ordinance that way. And then any modifications to that PUD would require a modification to the zoning ordinance, and then they would go back through the same process of a rezone. That way it's clear, it's there, it's well documented as an ordinance. That ordinance could then reference the PUD concept development plan and the detailed development plan. And then in cases of kind of the more involved or more detailed PUD type developments, especially where there's things like private drives or any sort of kind of infrastructure required, that would be documented as part of that PUD agreement, which we do have for many PUDs already. Again, it's just kind of clarifying that process more clearly in the ordinance. So that's kind of the high-level overview. The proposed amendments are included in your packet along with the existing ordinance as it exists today. So similar to past ordinance amendments here, you'll see there's some intent to kind of rearrange some of the language and kind of rely more heavily on some of those section headings and subheadings in order for people to be able to navigate the ordinance a little cleaner. So with that, happy to answer any questions. Like I said, you can feel free to follow up with any questions as you have them outside of this meeting here.
So these recommendations, these modifications, are we going to be voting on it next month, do you think?
Potentially.
So
potentially.
Read, make sure we have any other questions soon.
Yes, yep.
Aaron, I got one question. I think you mentioned that the current process is 5 steps, but on your diagram, there's kind of a red outline showing step 1 and step 2.
Sorry, yeah.
And then with the new process, the step 1 and step 2 kind of still remains, but I think what you were referring to is maybe the number of public hearings?
Correct, yeah. I should have used clearer language there.
Yeah, so, and you don't need to fix it now, but just for consideration to maybe make that clearer as this gets finalized.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that much power that we get the final say. Because again, I would say, well, the city commission approved it, now it's going to be on us, right? Wow.
And I will note there is a,
As this Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility.
Is Dave submitting his resignation?
on that note, one thing we do have in the draft ordinance is an appeals process. So any decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission is appealable through the City Commission. I think we do outline a timeline for that appeal so that it's not open-ended forever. Anybody aggrieved by your decision can appeal that.
Well, and by the time it gets to us, you guys have done a great job on it. Don't get me wrong, you guys are doing your work. That makes our work a lot easier.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
Especially days like today.
You know, I usually don't talk back to people when they're, but that
Me neither.
ticked me off. I mean, to sit here and think that we're gonna deny something.
Where, this is off the record?
Right.
Yep.
Oh. It's up, what?
The recording's not stopped
I'm sorry, but that. Well.
Anyway. So, thank you for that. That was this discussion item. And so the last item is to adjourn.
Let's do that.
Do we have to vote on that? No. Adjourned, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Did you turn the recording off? I wasn't gonna swear, but I mean,
It's a very challenging thing. I apologize for
well, you led the charge, so that I said, wow,